Good afternoon, everyone. You had a good lunch. So we are going to start the open source 101 track. And our first speaker is actually Mr. William Jiang from ByteDance, open source evangelist. Yeah, so without further ado, thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone. Before I start my talk, I just want to do some ask some questions. Have you ever been a maintainer of the open source project? Oh, great. Does anyone wants to contribute to open source? Okay, great. Today's my presentation is about bridge. It's kind of to the mentor and the contributor together, and the topic is like good first issues and with some best practice. A little bit introduction of myself. I'm William Jiang. Now I'm working for ByteDance as an open source evangelist. And I'm also a mentor of the Apache Software Foundation incubator. And in the meantime, I also started I'm also an initiator of the Apache local community, Beijing. And before I joined the ByteDance, I worked for Huawei and Red Hat. So I spent a lot of time on the open source project. So I think we probably have the same questions that how to bring the community together, like new contributors and the maintainer. As project maintainer, I think a lot of people we have a huge of the task, but for the newbies, they may not know about the project. We need to spend some time to break the task down. But for the new contributors, I will share some story on myself. As you can see, the first issue I contributed to the Apache project. For me, I talked to some contributors. They said I don't have much time to play with the issues, and I don't want to break anything. So is there a safe way for me to do the contribution? And today I will talk about the good first issue. Did you guys heard about the good first issue? It's a tag in the GitHub, but I heard a lot of people know about that. But once you try to apply the tag, there's some something needs to explain. I will show you more later. Here is my first issue. I used to contribute to Apache Camel, and I started the kind of journey like 70 years ago. And this is it's made too small, and this issue is made by myself. The background is the developers, they are using Linux, and they never use the Windows. I happen to have a Windows desktop, and I try to run the unit test and find out, whoa, there's some test failure. It's related to the Windows, so this came up my first issue. And but when I look it back, it's like I have a privilege to work on those open source projects on my daytime work. So I can spend a lot of time on it. But for the average people, they may not know about that. But there's some spirits I just want to share you with you guys. Because there was a lot of encourage the maintainers. I spent 6 months to get the commit right. So it's take a lot of time, maybe 20 zero issues. It's take a lot of time. So for me, now I'm as an open source evangelist, I try to make the bar a little bit lower and just get the people more quick start to get know how to contribute to the project in a more easy way. So that's come up the talk of the day. Why the good first issue matter? For the contributor journey, first issue is a rank, and for the newcomer, it's like help them to get to know about or get engagement with the project. And for the project perspective, especially on the maintainer side, the issues help us to get more new blood, and it's made project resilience, and it also spreads the knowledge in the community. So let's take it breakdown. What's the good first issue? So here's a template. I used to talk with the engineering side of the ByteDance. Normally, they just try to have a template, but I just say this template is just to give you some suggestion. You don't need to follow all the rules. The basic rule is you just make it very clear, and everyone can understand it. So normally we don't need to explain it by my. So the topic can explain themselves, and we can also need to provide a very specific information, so the contributor can help themselves. And the scope is very important. It's only 1 or 2 hours work. It's not because we don't have a lot of privilege to work on those open source projects. And I think the most important thing is people take a look at it. They can find this education. They can gain something. They can learn something from it, or they can get something by doing this kind of task. So I will show you some best practice to create this kind of good first issue. First, you can identify those tasks, and there are a lot of low-hanging fruits, and especially we did a lot of work to help the people to do some enhancements or to fix the tabs of the documents. This is quite safe work because it won't broken anything. If you contribute to the open source project, you will know. You send the PR, and there's a CI, and there's a lot of tests. If you made something wrong, the CI broken, your patch will be never merged. But with the document, it's quite easier, and we can also add the test, and to make sure the test. How many people knows about the code coverage? There's some. Oh, so I don't need to explain in detail. So the code coverage can give you the areas if it's covered or not. But with well coverage, the test, it's help us to make the project more smoothly developed. So as the test could be more easy way. And for first, if we want to let the people to find out the good first issue more easily, we use the good first issue label. And in the meantime, if we want to get the help from the community, we can add the help wanted. So in this way, it's more easier for the newcomers to find out those things. And with this type, you can also, there's some portal. I will show you guys later. It will show this kind of issues out so the others can find out these kind of issues more easily. Another thing is how to create the good first issue. You need to make it very clear. And that is why I'm provide the template. Basically, we show the context, the goal, and then we have some steps to fix. But sometimes the good first issue is come from the other guys. It's not only from the maintainer, but maybe some people who find out to the issue. So how can we do that? So normally we share the template. It's how to say that? It's an example, and the people can get to know about that. And once we add the tag, the maintainer can also modify those things to apply more information to help the people to get to know that. So that's examples I already showed. And in the meantime, sometimes the good first as a maintainer, as an 8 years maintainer, sometimes I cannot help myself to fix the issue myself. So sometimes I need to tell myself I need to leave some unfinished business to let the people to try it out. So to leave this low hanging fruits for people to get test, and then they can get to know. It's quite easy to do the contributions to the open source project. And in the meantime, we also need to provide the context to give the useful information for the people to know. And I can see as a maintainer, if you know about the project for a very long time, you may take it for granted. You don't want to mention about that. So sometimes we need to switch the gear. And I will show you, you may use the AI to do some role play, and to help you to role more informative issues. And and you need to also provide some information to get the people to let the people to get in touch with you. And even we have a lot of the tool. I also want to introduce AI mentor later, but the people face-to-face touch and in the encouraging words you give it is quite important, and you will let the mentee more welcomed, and they will get to know you and get to know about the community in a more natural way. So keep this in mind. And in the meantime, we also need to provide solutions as an example, so the people can learn from it with a more easy way. And this is an example that show the code snap. The user can the contributor can take a look, and in this way it's more easier for them to pick up, especially if they know later about the project. Okay, and the first issue is more like a self-service onboarding process, and the contributor can learn from the project by looking up those things. And I will show you some example. This is such as the Jupyter's first contribution guide, and it tells everything on the website, and you can take a look and to set up the environment, and then you can try it out. And for the maintainer, if you put everything in the document, it will save you a lot of time. And you just point to the link, and everyone can get to know from that. And I also mentioned leave some unfinished business as maybe a bay or something to get the interest of the contributors, and then they can we can keep the interactions. And sometimes it's quite easier for the mentor to do the job. It may take half an hour or 20 minutes, but if you get the chance to the contributors, they will appreciate that, because it's gives them the way to get to know about the project. And this is an example of the Jupyter, and they show the issues and how to set up the development environment, and they also provide the channel to ask help, to let the contributor to ask help. And if you want to your good first issue be discoverable, GitHub have a trend. And if you put the good first issues in your project descriptions with a tag, it will automatically come up. And I think there's a lot of people can find them out. And there's also a good issues website. And if you put a PR and with some information, it also can be pop up. That's when the people get to know the issues, sometimes they need your help, and so build up the mentorship cultures is quite important. For myself, my first issues is like finding a bug, and I fix it myself. But if I don't have the chance to talk to the maintainer, which happens to be my colleague, so it's quite easy for me, but it's also take me about a week because at that times we are not in the same team. But finally, my boss told me, "Hey, you can spend some time on it." But I already get touch with the mentor, and they give me a lot of encouragement. And by the way, I didn't mention when I get the information, I become the camel committer. That is the bad time for me because the office in Beijing office was closed, and I'm not sure if I can do the work if I can still do the work. But fortunately, I get my job because of that, and it's like I get the help from the community, and I think the community is welcome and always help the newbies to join. And if we want to practice the good first issue, have the dedicated mentor is quite helpful. And if you, I will share the link, and if you interesting about, I think Kubernetes have a very good mentor programs, and if you have the project want to follow it, you can take a look. And another thing is always recognize the contributions of the contributor, and because they are not the employee of your team, and a little good word can give them a high reward of their work, and it keeps them to work close with you. And I think GitHub have very good ways to do that. And when we do the release, we can always recognize the contributor from the GitHub PRs, and we can also have the social media shout out. It won't take you a lot of efforts, but it will spare with words and give great inspirations to the people who are interested about your project, because they can follow the steps of the people. Oh, there's some pitfalls. It's like I get a lot of people don't have a very clear scope of the good first issue. Sometimes they may have feature or very big features as a good first issue, and because it's a high bars for people to, especially for the new people to get know. So this is no way to do that. Such as reflect the Intel API. So you need to get to know about the pros cons of the designs. Is take a lot of time, and you don't you need to have very planned words to explain the issues and maybe tell everything you know, because you cannot take for granted some things the contributor already know. And the last thing is no response. I as I mentioned in the I work as a member of the guidance in Oslo, and I found out a lot of projects they may short of the hands, and so they cannot be responsive in GitHub. But for the newbies, if they have the questions and they take a week, no one responds, they may leave. So please take it in your mind. If you want to attract the people who want to work with you, and you need to spend some time to talk to them and make sure they are welcomed, and maybe some simple words could help them to do better. And in the meantime, we have a scanner to look up the GitHub issues, and by monthly or by weekly, we can send some message to the maintainer. Oh, this issue has opened for a very long time. Please take a look. So in this way, we can reduce these kind of things. Okay, there's another interesting topics because we always short of the hand, and oh, I need to speed up. There's a bunch of way when the people do the contribution, and we can use the AI to give us some help. And there's also a paper from Beihang University, and I just talked to them, and I think we can do is better. Now let me introduce new tools from ByteDance. It's Tree, and we call it the real AI engineer, and it has functionality just like the cursor, but now it's just open up, and we encourage people to try it out. And now I just follow the steps, and to use the trees to do the work as the mentor. So if the mentor can do the things, it will help the contributors to the mentee to work. And I used to get failed experience because it's a young lady who wants to work on the open source project, but she is so shy. But I think if we can ask the help from the AI, it's very helpful. And because the AI is 24 hours, the mentors can give you everything, such as you can get to know about the project structure, and with the help of a large language model, it's doing very well. And I also want to use the AI assistant to give me a good first issue. And I told them, the good, give me a good first issue, and then come out a good first issue. And and if you want to get to know how to implement it, there's also some detailed information for that. And with if you want to work on the code solution, this AI assistant can do the similar things to you. And by leveraging the AI assistant as a mentee, you can help you to go through the tedious work, and such as the environment setup, instrument code, and it can generate some code skeletons for you to use. And for the mentor, I mentioned about you can generate some issue templates, or just to create the issues for you. But I need to mention about for the generated AI, you don't trust it. You need to verify it to make sure it's in the right track. Okay, I just want to summarize my talk. Well, a well-crafted issue is not a task. It's invitations to the belonging. So we can use the AI tools to help us to fill the gap, but we still need to face-to-face touch, and to give the encouragement to the new contributors. And that's my talk. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. William, for sharing us how to start contributing to open source, especially with modern AI tools. We have time for one or two quick questions.
Okay, thank you for the talk. So, as a maintainer of open source projects, you mentioned that one of the mistakes to avoid is to have too broad a scope, like refactor the entire API.
Yeah.
Okay, but what if the state of the project is such that we really need to refactor the entire API? what should I do then as a
As a maintainer, we can set up the roadmap, and we can tell the expectations of the communities. We cannot stand these sucks APIs. We need to move on. But sometimes the people work on those APIs, so we can give them suggestions to do the migration. But for the API, from my experience, the API needs to stabilize. And normally we can have 2 or 3 milestones to release, but we give them the expectations. It's still improved. It's work in progress. So we encourage you to use, and please give us some feedback, and we can still work on. But this is mainly on the maintainers' work, so we cannot encourage the new contributors to do this kind of work. But sometimes there's a experienced developer who happens to have that experience. Maybe we can have some discussions, and then we can work on, or may have some brainstorm things. But I think the beauty of the open source is just to give you a way to get the feedback from somebody you never know, but sometimes it will inspire you and to give you a very good solutions come out.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we are out and for Q&A, but can I suggest that if you have any more questions or to direct to a speaker, you can make use of the Telegram group. Yeah, then Mr.
I'm around for 3 days. So
it's also around. Right? So thanks very much. I want to thank Mr. Dylan for the talk. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah.
Just a quick question. You mentioned about communication platform like Slack or Discord nowadays. How can you deal with a newcomer's anxiety? How like they might get feel like they be gatekeeping or keeping from like a gentleman club something. How can you prevent that?
It could be a challenge to how to scale it up. So both, I think the most easy way is just like the talk I gave, and then some people interrupt, and we can have an in-person talk, and then we can give some directions. And I think this is a more human touch things. But unfortunately, for the open source project, we barely have the chance to do this face-to-face talk. So normally we need to have a very clear document to help them to help the newbies to go through those process. And I don't think have a one-on-one mentorship with the instance message talk helps a lot, because it's a really time consuming.
You need to use the microphone.
So normally we need to.
Okay, sure. And start at 2, right? Start at like 2 o'clock.
If you can start.
Okay, sure.
Hi, good afternoon everyone, and welcome to this Open Source 101 track. Our second speaker is from Optimum, and she's talking about practical and impractical in open source library. Yeah. It's a 25-minute talk. Yeah. She's actually the open source maintainer of API. Yeah. We will give her.
Yeah, sorry, my does. Oh, okay, sure. Thank you.
So without further ado, let's welcome.
Yeah, sure. Okay, good morning, everyone. I think it's going to be evening, right? Because we start at like 14 o'clock. So today I'm going to talk about practical and impractical in open source library. So I'm going to introduce myself first. So my name is Om. You can call me Sorry Om. I use this name on like Twitter, GitHub, and others like social media. I I work like I am a programmer like all of you, but I also in my free time I also does a little bit of cosplay. And my project, I work on a project called FOSSASIA, which is a framework for like building stuff in TypeScript. But I'm going to show you later anyway. So my name is you can say my name as Salty or Ether Salty or Om. Om is like a local name here in Thailand, so which is pronounced like ORM, like ORM in one word, like Om, something like that. So like if you want to like pronounce my name, you can say something like that. Okay, I work on FOSSASIA, which is a framework for building web server in Bun. If you haven't heard of it, I'm going to talk later in the slide. Funny enough, I also does this talk like at here in the different room in this building. So like this is the training room for training room 1, right? And this talk was like in training room 2, like 3 months or 4 months ago, but it had just been uploaded like 11 days ago. So it's like a tradition now that I usually like speak at local technical event in Thailand, and they usually like ask me to cosplay to speak. So like today I cosplay as a Fuji Nagisa from Blue Archive. So it is a mobile game called like Blue Archive, and like in almost like every technical event I also like cosplay to speak, but it doesn't get uploaded a lot, and most of the time I speak in Thai. So like most of people overseas doesn't like know like what happened around here, but we have a lot of fun here. Yeah. So this talk is going to be recommended for anyone, not limited to like JavaScript. You don't have to know JavaScript to like listen to this talk. We are going to like talk about a little bit of overview of it, and doesn't get to like deeply technical stuff. So like everyone can enjoy it. So to start, let's play a little game here. I'm going to show you like some software, and then you can think like what is the similarity between all of them. So first one, we have a program called Discord. I think a lot of you guys know. It's like Slack for gamer or something like that, but like it does. A lot of people use it for like playing like communicating in while playing a desktop game like computer games. Next one is Visual Studio Code, which I think all of you are already know it and familiar with it. The third one is Postman. This is like a program to like make an API call like web server to like maybe gRPC and WebSocket as well. And for designer, we also have Figma here, which is like a program to like design interface for like making a software. So all of these 4 programs have something in common, and it is built with something called Electron. Electron is actually a browser, so like you create some website and then you pack it into like Google Chrome or Chromium and then ship it as a software, desktop software. Instead of opening as a website, we now have a desktop software that you can like open it from like anywhere. So you might think that why do all these people do something like this? So like, what is the reason that they made it? Like, why can't we just like make something like a native, like maybe Mac native, like Windows native, to like make it a little bit faster, right? So the reason is for business standpoint, we want to like quickly ship software to our like client, so like we can ship more stuff and like reduce the cost. And for developer standpoint, if you already have a website, instead of like hiring more people to create a desktop app for you, why don't we just like ship a website and then call it a day? Because it saves a lot of time and like a lot of resources, instead of hiring new developers and then they have to like learn a lot of stuff from our code base. So like we can just like ship what we have and then call it a day. So from this scenario, shipping fast is something called practical, because like we want to like reduce the cost and then does ship a lot of stuff, and to like for our customer to make some money. So the word practical here is like something like it makes sense to do, and then it makes the most sense to do it. So like for CRUD app, it doesn't have to be like ultra fast or like open in like 0.01 seconds. It maybe take like around 3 seconds to open, but it does its job. That is fine. But it doesn't apply to all of the software here. So like, for example, this program is called Blender. So obviously you can't like use a lot of like GPU to power 3D and 3D software in the web, right? So we have to like exactly make something for each environment, like maybe Windows and Mac and Linux. So like we have to code it from scratch to like make it fast. Downstream Resolve is also another program like video editing software. It is the reason that you don't see many video editing software in the web, because it does use a lot of graphical power and a lot of threading and a lot of stuff to make it happen. So like it doesn't like really suit for the web. The last one is Adobe Lightroom. It also significantly use a lot of graphical power. I have myself this machine is the M1 Max, right? It is like max out spec out like 300 3000 USD, and every time I code like in Rust or like in C++, and then I spawn a lot of threading, or sometimes like maybe hit with some a lot of loop and stuff, it never like run the fan here, because like our software are really fast. But when I open Adobe Lightroom and then I upload like maybe 5K or 6K images, and then I edit for like a few minutes, it somehow the fan does spin up. So like it does take a lot of power to like power them. So in this scenario, high performance is like practical here, because you obviously you can like make this software with the web, right? So high performance here is something called practical. So my point is the word practical is subjective. You can like apply you can't just like ship everything with Chromium and call it a day, because some software requires some more power, or like requires some niche requirement than like putting it in a web browser and call it a day. This also apply to like making a library of framework. So the situation are not very different, a lot different here. So for building a product, you are going to like prioritize on shipping product, maintainability, and code quality, and a lot of stuff that trying to like ship a new product to our end user. So like sometimes we also have a joke around like, if the code works, do not touch it, right? Because like we don't want to like fight with management to like refactor something, although we want to like refactor something, but the management just like doesn't want it. So in this case, if it is fast enough, so it is practical. We can like focus on the other area that can like profit our like make some profit for our company. So the source is I think everyone already know, like in your heart, like when you make software for your end user, you usually like your project manager usually say that try to ship everything. If it works, then it is fine. But for building a library, like a library of framework, most of the time you are going to like solving a technical needs more than like shipping products. So more than solving a technical need, you also trying to ship with the least footprint as possible. So I'm going to show a little bit of something here, a little bit of like priority as myself for like, because like I also does open source framework. So like this is like kind of my priority to prioritize when developing a new feature or creating a new version. So like, but most of the time we want to solve a technical need like in the most like practical way. So a week ago, I have something like I am building a side project, and I'm trying to like adding some components from, as I use React, I want to like add something called command palette. So if you are not familiar, it's like something like pressing a command and spacebar in your Mac and then type stuff you want to do. So somehow it also like have a component in React that you can like just download and install it. It's very easy to do so because like you just like type something like this and it's all done. So like I implemented it in my side project and it's quite beautiful here because like I don't have to like think a lot about like how to make it work with accessibility. I don't have to maintain a lot of code because I can just import it from like external library, and code quality is awesome because like I don't have to like think about like the logic to like for race condition, for searching, for like a lot of stuff. I just like import it and call it a day. So like, but if I have to make it myself, I'm going to start with Tailwind CSS because it is the easiest way for me to like do it because it's quite fast and it's like a lot of people already know it. But one thing I found is that if you try to open the library here, you can see that it uses something called inline style, which most of the people like if we are creating a new website, we usually don't do something like this because like it is a little bit harder to maintain. So the question is why did they do something like this? It is because instead of installing a new an external library that maybe end user doesn't use it, so like say that I use Tailwind, right? But maybe some other doesn't use Tailwind, maybe they use something else like Bootstrap or like CSS in JS solution. It is going to like add some external dependency just for styling, which doesn't make sense for them. So like what they try to do here is that they minimize the use of external library as possible to like make it like to minimize the footprint as much as possible. And this also happened because like as you are building the product, you are going to add a lot of abstraction or abstraction. So each layer of an abstraction, I'm going to add some overhead here. So from the whiteboard of XKCD, we have something like we have a lot of abstraction to build over. So say that when you create a new website, you choose some framework, maybe like React or Vue or something like that. And once you pick a React, you are going to like pick some meta framework like maybe Next.js, maybe Remix, and then you're going to pick some stage management solution and over this. So there's a lot of abstraction to build over, and each one have an overhead of its own. So if each abstraction have a lot of overhead, it is going to like slow our app down. So like each layer, they try to minimize the impact as possible. So I'm going to show you this library here is called HAV, which is a validator library for JavaScript. So this library has like around 500 million downloads a month, and it is used by all these companies like Vercel, Vue.js, and a lot of stuff here, like all the big players in ecosystem. But if you open the GitHub pages, and you go to an issue, you can find one interesting issue here is that it can't be used in Cloudflare Worker because it does use something called eval. Eval is something, if you try to search eval, it say that eval is a function that you can input a string code and it will run the code here. But it does also have a lot of like a big warning here that you should never use eval directly. But so in this case, when we try to use eval, we are going to say that you shouldn't use it at all because it could like potentially create some backdoor in our code base. But it does have a lot of performance impact. So if you are using it like wise enough, you can like make it a lot faster than other in the ecosystem. So here we have some library called Sort, which is like a lot of people are using it in JavaScript, and then we have HAV here, which is like significantly faster, like a lot faster. But sometimes we also like found that maybe the base code doesn't look good. So this code is called inverse square root, fast inverse square root, which is used in like an early day of the video game called Doom. So basically, this code does some magic stuff and then makes some efforts and make the doom fast, then make the game faster. But you can look at here, like they have a lot of magic here that we actually don't know what happened here. So you can see from the comment, like I also have no idea what it does. But if you try to ship this in a normal app, like if they are fast enough, and then you try to create a new pull request here, I'm going to say that it is the worst code ever, and you should and I will close the issue. So like there's a different perspective in application level code and library level code. In application, we want to ship the product as fast as possible, and in the library, we want to minimize to solve the technical problem with the least footprint possible. So we also have some just yesterday or 2 days ago, Microsoft announced that they rewrite TypeScript compiler from TypeScript to Go, and it is 10 times faster. So you can see here that there's a lot of impact here for foundation library or a lot of abstraction to be built over. Once they announce this, a lot of in the community they are overjoyed because TypeScript are really slow, and then they block a lot of, since they have a lot of abstraction built on it. Once the foundation are fast enough, they improve a lot of things and make a lot of stuff possible. When you create a new project when you create a new project with website, you are not going to use something called Webpack, which is very popular back in the day, maybe 5 or 6 years. But as today, no one use it now because it is too slow, and we have a better solution with a faster tooling, with a lot of faster tooling. I also have this code here from Alicia, which I made it. So basically, this code say that I create some schema here. Say that maybe body. Our web server does want the body to have property of number, and it also should have upload file. But to create something like this, it use a lot of code here. So this is TypeScript code in our code base. If you try to open it, you can see that there's a lot of generic in this class, really long line of generic. You can ask your friend if they wrote TypeScript. You are not going to see this every day, because it is so hard to maintain it. And we does a lot of stuff to make it happen, maybe a lot of stuff. So I also get this message from our contributor, first time contributor. They trying to debug our framework, and then they saw something 1,000 line long of generic, and they said, never mind, I'm going to open the issue and then maybe leave it to someone else. So you may also have a question in your head, why does it have 1,000 line long of generic to make stuff happen? But to make what is possible, what you see here, to make something like this possible, wrong slide. To make something like this possible, it is really easy to use it, but it is really hard to make it happen. So all this stuff, all this technique and all this code technique here are used by a lot of library that are popular in JavaScript ecosystem, like gRPC, Prisma, Drizzle, a lot of stuff here. But it also really hard to maintain. I also got some new issue here, which said that our code base are too hard to read, and then maybe you should refactor it. But yeah, I give them the benefit of the doubt because they really want to improve our code base, but I actually don't know how, because it is so complex, and I try to make it so fast. So one thing that they didn't know is that behind all of the code, there's a lot of consideration here. So this graph represents something called when you're trying to create a type, you usually just it happened instantly, right? But actually, what happened behind the scene is that the compiler does a lot of stuff to pass the type, and this graph represents that how long does the type to create it. So if we have a lot of type here, this graph says that this graph is something that only maintainer usually know about, because end user doesn't like think a lot of end user doesn't have think a lot about like how fast the type runs. So like we have to debug and maintain it. So like it all boils down to something like this: is that everyone want to use like complex type library, but nobody want to maintain it. So back to our like my work. I create something called FOSSASIA, which is like a library to make web server faster using some an alternative library called Bun, which is an alternative runtime for JavaScript. Instead of using Node and Deno, there's a third library. There's a third runtime called Bun, and it's like very fast. It is actually like much faster than what we have here, and sometimes like faster than other languages as well. But the most impractical thing that we does is that we made something called sucrose. Sucrose is like when you write a function in JavaScript, like something like this, you can actually call it. You can actually like get the code of it. So like get the code of it like using something called toString, and then you can get the code of it. And this code is like exactly it's the same as your code here in the function here. So like you transform the function into a string, and then what we does is that we create a function that something like a tree walker, like reading the code like using ST parser or something like that to determine that what does the function use, which property does the function use, and what do they return. So like all that putting together, like turning the code into string and then pass it into ST parser, we can determine that what property that our server are using. So like for one endpoint, maybe they are using a body, maybe in the other endpoint they doesn't use it, maybe in the latter endpoint they use something called query. So like we can read the code ahead of time and then compile the most optimized code here. So like if they doesn't use body, we doesn't have to inject the code to pass body. And we can do something like compile time optimization as well. In the C, like maybe C++ and Rust, when you create a loop here with a fixed array, you can see that in the code it is just a for loop. But when you compile it and look at the code inside, it actually doesn't loop here, because like the compiler know that it can like make it a little bit faster and then compile it into a literal code instead of creating a for loop. So like what we does here is that we does a lot of impractical thing that you wouldn't even like use in that you wouldn't even do in normal application code. So like we create an optimized code to make it happen. Funny enough, we also like publish this on the SCM paper as a research paper, which I recommend that you maybe check it out sometimes. But it does a lot of interesting thing that you wouldn't think is possible in JavaScript. So like my point is that practical is subjective, because you aren't going to like put an ST parser into your application code, but for like library maintainer and like framework maintainer, they does this like just maybe like daily task for their days. So like we does a lot of stuff, impractical stuff, to minimize your code impact and allowing you to like create what you want. So next time when you're trying to create, like maintain, like maybe contribute to an open source library, instead of like creating a new issue, like your code base are like complex, maybe you can like ask the reason why they are complex, and then what is the motivation behind it. So like you can correctly like get to the point and create like meaningful pull requests. So that's all my talk. So thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for telling us about the performance issues in web development. We are going to start the next talk at 2:30, but actually the first speaker is not here yet, so we can open up some time for Q&A. So if anyone has any questions for the speaker, I will come over to ask.
Did you ever have any comments in your open source project that made you feel dismotivated to continue?
Yeah, actually sometimes, but I think when you are popular enough, like some people are going to hate you for no reason. So like I doesn't like mind it a lot. Maybe I think about it like for some minutes and then just like moving on because I have some more important stuff to do, and I know that what it does are benefit for the community. So like they are for the greater good, and if someone doesn't like them, then that's fine. It is going to like appeal to everybody.
Are there examples where you thought something was completely practical and then over time learn the reason for it and it surprised you? Examples would be great.
Yeah, like in the first version of my of what I does, like of Elysia. Actually, we use a lot of, since I wrote a lot of application code and then like I try to like create framework, which at first I didn't think a lot of about performance a lot and a lot of doesn't think about of the overhead a lot, but I published a package and then some people say that maybe like they feel that something is slow. So like I look into all code base and they have like 100% code coverage, 100% code coverage, and like a lot of stuff are like really clean. Every linter say that our code quality are like top notch, but for end user they doesn't actually care a lot. They just like want to like get stuff done and get a lot of feature as much as possible. So like I try to like dig into like some performance optimization, and most of it like actually labeled as bad code, like, and they doesn't like actually recommend it like the way I'm going to, because it is going to be hard to maintain, and sometimes like if you aren't careful enough you can like introduce some security risks. The other example is also about the fast inverse square root. So like at first they doesn't like want to create something like this, right? Because it is, oh yeah, wrong slide, wrong slide. Should be here, I think. Yep. The fast inverse square root doesn't actually do the developer guy doesn't actually want to create something like this if their machine are fast enough. But at the time, computers aren't fast enough, so like they are just like introduced to like 3D game, and then a lot of stuff aren't powerful enough. So like they have to find a way to make some code that like quite beautiful and then refactor it to like maybe a little bit worse code, but it can ship and it is fast enough for end user. So like that's that's I think that's answer your question.
I'm going to assume that like the decision to create that 1,000 line of generics wasn't the first choice. Like, can you talk through how the journey works in this?
Yeah, sure. So before I create a framework, actually I didn't want to create a framework because obviously I don't want to maintain it and it does use a lot of time, right? So at first I use library called Express and Classify, and they have some, but I feel like that the way that they make type happen aren't simple enough. So like when you create a type, when you want to create a body in like Express or Classify, something like that, you are going to like define an AGV schema, and then you have to define a TypeScript schema separately. And if you also want to have like open API documentation like Swagger or Scala or something like that, you are going to maintain like 3 separate types for the same thing, which like aren't like aren't good enough like for end user, because we doesn't want to like create the thing we have 3 times for every endpoint. So like at first I doesn't think a lot of like 1,000 line generic a lot, but as time goes by I found that maybe if like we put our work, invest a little bit like more to slowing the technical program that I found, maybe it can like slow maybe the library can get a little bit better. So like I gradually created something from like maybe 10 lines generally to 100 lines and 1,000 lines to like solve the problem I have.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so that's a pretty good the third part in open source 101 right?
อยากกลับบ้านแล้วอยากกลับบ้านแล้วคนมาเยอะไหมจบพอดี
So then I don't need this, or
ตื่นเต้น
I do
ตื่น
have
เต้นมาก
for the recording.
Okay, thank you.
Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you so much. Okay. All righty. I'll just jump right in.
I forgot.
Thank you all for coming today. This is actually a talk that I gave as an hour talk last year, so I had to consolidate this. So hopefully you can still get enough out of it. But afterwards, I will be over at the Google booth, so you can ask me all the questions you want after the talk as well. Actually, let me go back real quick. I have been leading the Google Summer Code program for about, well, since 2015. So I guess it's my 10th year or so. And I've been at Google since 2011. So I kind of wrote this talk based on my experience and feedback from a lot of our mentors and contributors that have taken part in the program. So first of all, there are many different mentorship programs for open source folks out there. Google Summer Code has been around for 21 years, so it's a pretty big one. It's the one a lot of people have heard about. There's also another great one, Outreachy, which is very similar to Summer Code, but it's for internships for people that are subject to systemic bias and that are impacted by underrepresentation in the technical industry where they are living. And then there's also Linux Foundation mentorship programs. These are just 3 of the larger ones. There are many others. There are many others that are held by universities, sometimes by open source projects themselves. A lot of projects, if they can't get everybody into Summer of Code or one of these other programs, that they have these great excited mentees, they will kind of figure out a way to hopefully get them a little bit of money and help them throughout the program kind of on the side and doing their own version. So that's actually becoming more and more popular. Briefly, we're going to talk through kind of these 5 topics today, and I'm just going to go straight into it. All right, so why is mentorship so important in open source communities? Essentially, new contributors are the reason that communities kind of continue to thrive. You've got to have those fresh ideas coming in. You need to have new perspectives. So the ecosystem only stays healthy with new people constantly coming in, because a lot of people, whether they retire, they move on to other things, people come and go in any kind of community, and open source communities aren't any different. So you've got to keep new people coming in. Now, a sustainable ecosystem is ultimately the goal, and new folks coming in is a key way to do that. But the other part of it is the knowledge share. You might have people who've been part of your open source community for 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years, and if something happens to them, they decide to leave the community, all that knowledge is gone. So by having mentors, they're passing their knowledge along to everybody else. So mentorship is vital. So let's start with, how do you get people into your community? You need to create a low barrier to entry. That is one of the things that we hear the most often with folks thinking about Summer of Code or any of these other programs. They're like, I don't know if I'm good enough. Can I do this? So getting started in open source is overwhelming in general for people, for just the normal person coming in going, well, this looks interesting. I'd like to contribute, but is anybody going to care about my opinion? Are they going to listen to me? Am I going to ask stupid questions? They think things like that. That's very common. So you want to make it as easy as possible for folks to come to your community. And by doing mentorship programs or any kind of mentorship, program, let's just say that for now, then that really allows people to understand that you want them there, that you are creating this opportunity to bring in all these new folks. So one of the key things to a healthy onboarding experience for any new contributor is good, solid documentation. Not something that open source projects are historically known to do well. Fortunately, it's gotten much better over the last, I've been in open source since 2011, so 14 years. It's gotten so much better in the last 6, 7, 8 years than it was 14 years ago. A lot of that does have to do with programs like Google Summer Code, and we also did a program called Google Code-In. That was for high school students. So any organization that took part in Google Code-In very quickly learned they had to have good documentation. Otherwise, they're going to have 100 people asking the exact same question over and over and over again within a 2-week period, which is incredibly frustrating to everybody. So you want to have an easy place for people to be able to find those answers. So having quality documentation is really important. Having some basic things on there, like what is it that your project does? That's important. Sometimes I've gone to, when I review organization applications for GSOC, I look at the different, the program sites or the community sites, and sometimes it's not clear what it is that the organization is trying to accomplish. That's never good. So you need to make it very clear to anybody coming to your community what it is that you do. You also need to have and you want it to be clear. You don't have to have a fancy UI. It can be very basic, but just some simple things on there. What is it that your org does? Link to the code base so they can easily go find the code base and they can kind of dig through it and see what's going on. And having some very basic FAQs, super helpful. All of these things make it a much more welcoming environment for anybody coming into open source. You also need to make it just easy to find. When I'm looking through all of these these community sites and I'm reading through them, I'm just thinking, oh my goodness, sometimes they are really, really bad at just basically organizing the information. Again, not everybody is a UX person, that's great, but just have somebody who doesn't know anything about your community look at your page and say, hey, can you answer these 5 questions? And if they can't figure out where to get to your code base, where to find help, how to reach out to your community, whether that's through a chat channel, through an email, then something's wrong. You need to clean that up. You also really want to have some place where you have a link to kind of the first time or the first, like, what do you call it? Oh my gosh. Just the easy things that you want somebody to do when they come to your community. I'm blanking on the name of it right now, sorry. That's first issues, that's exactly, thank you, first issues. Sorry, a little jet lag. So you wanna have a place where anybody coming into your community can sit there and go, oh, this is a simple thing I can do. Let me just take a little, poke at that. And they go, oh, okay, this is cool, I can do this one thing. You just want them to feel, again, welcomed, and that they kind of get that feeling that you're organized and you kind of know what you're doing, because if it's all discombobulated and jumbled, that's not great. That's not what a community that I would want to go into. Also think about open source in the sense that it's not just about developers. Yes, you need people writing the code, but you also need people who are technical writers, so they can write that documentation. And you need people who do marketing. How are you going to tell people about your open source project and your community and the things that you're doing? Because you need to tell people about what you're doing so you get more people to come into your community. It's kind of this cycle. You need people who are testers. A lot of people don't like to test your code. Well, you need to have good code for your open source project to continue to thrive. You don't want it to be all, you say icky is the word I'm going to use. So you also need folks who are designers. And again, it doesn't have to be a super fancy, basic website for your page, but if you're just having your page is just everybody going to a GitHub, to GitHub, that's not great. Like, you need to have a very basic design. And there's so many open source projects out there that can help you with that. So please think at least a little bit about the design and making it easy for people to find your project and to understand what's going on. Program and project managers. So I'm a program manager. You do need people who can kind of bring everybody together. Maybe you're going to do a release in a few months. You need somebody to kind of look at the bigger picture, say, okay, what are all the moving parts? How do we coordinate this? You need 1 or 2 people to really coordinate that, because developers focus on the code, and that's great, but oftentimes they're not thinking about the whole big picture. They're thinking about the one thing that they care about. And so you often have, one thing has to happen before this next thing happens. So you need a program manager to design that. You also need event planners if you're going to have any kind of a community meeting for your org. Maybe you're trying to get folks to go to an event like FOSSASIA and you're trying to coordinate everybody. Maybe it's just basically trying to get people into a hotel together or going to dinner. Sometimes it's amazing how complicated that can be, especially with many different people and just trying to make a reservation. So you need people who think like an event planner. And there are also other different skill sets are often needed depending on the size of your community. So thinking about it, if you're a new contributor, where do they get started? Is it with a pull request? Are they going to maybe file or fix one of the bugs or one of your first issues? Is it fixing documentation? This is actually one I really like a lot, and that we did that was very helpful for folks in the Google coding contest, because somebody would go in and they couldn't find the answer to their question. And so the part of the process of the program was people would say, oh, well, go and add that into the documentation so the next person who has that problem will be able to find the information. So if you can't figure it out, neither can anybody else. So fix the documentation. That's a nice, easy way for folks to get started, because it's not a heavy lift. It doesn't feel too scary, because you really want to help them alleviate that imposter syndrome. I get this all the time. People, no matter where I am in the world, talking at a conference or talking to folks at our Mentor Summit or contributors anywhere or even online through emails, most people don't think they're good enough, especially if you're talking about folks who are maybe in university or very early in their open source careers. They don't think that their opinion would matter. Like, hey, these people have been doing this for 30 years. Why do they care what I think? So you really want to make it as easy as possible for them to feel welcomed, to feel like your community cares and they want you there, or they want them there, because that's why mentorship programs are so important, because the whole point is that you're going to have people that are mentoring these folks. You want to help them. You want to help them succeed. You want them to become hopefully long-term committers to your projects. And again, back to new contributors mean a healthy and sustainable open source community. So you've got to get those new folks in there. So make it as easy as possible for them to succeed and to feel welcomed. All right, there's a whole bunch of things on this list. And this list actually I put together by asking the question of our mentors and our feedback from Google Summer Code every year and from our students. And we asked the question, how can you be a great mentor? The things that come up most often from the contributors about why they thought their mentor was so amazing were the things on this list. I won't go through all of them, but I'll pull out a few of them here. So number one, adjust to your mentee. Everybody's different. So sometimes you have somebody who wants to be part of your community, but they're incredibly shy. So you need to figure out how to communicate with them so that they feel like they can ask you questions and that they don't feel like it's a burden every time you ask you a question. And on the other end, you have people who want to ask you 1,800 questions, and it's a little much. And so you've got to kind of put a boundary on that as well, because as a mentor, your time is valuable as well. Often, many of you have day jobs, you have families, you have lives, and you do open source in your spare time because you care about the open source community that you're a part of. So just figure out that way to adjust to the person. And each person is different. If you try to keep a very set standard for every single mentee, it's not going to work. So be flexible. The thing that comes up the most often that folks say was so important to them when they were doing Google Summer Code or any kind of program like that is they felt empowered by their mentors, because the mentors are teaching them along the way, but they're also letting them realize like, hey, you can do this. You can figure out how to answer these questions. You can figure out how to do these things on your own. I'm going to help you find those resources so that you know how to do it in the future, but you can do these, all these different things. Teacher, that is, when you think of a mentor, that's probably one of the first things that you think of, because you are teaching new skills. You're teaching them soft skills, like just being able to communicate, because often you may be here in Thailand, and then the person could be in Poland or Argentina that you're mentoring. So you just need to really set those expectations that, you're there to teach them and that you want them to succeed, but you've also got to figure out kind of where they're coming from, because each culture is a little bit different, so you've got to adjust in that sense as well. You also really want to focus on those problem-solving skills. You want to help them figure out how to find the answers. Not everything can be answered with just a Google search. I know, hard to believe, but you do need to show them there's so many different resources to find answers to their questions to help them succeed. We'll skip through some of the rest of these. Just really being available so that they know that they can ask you a question, and you can set boundaries. So think about it as, maybe you're talking to your mentee, you're having conversations, whether that's via chat or a virtual chat, a couple times a week. But you can set boundaries and say, hey, I'm not available for, Monday nights and Thursday nights. I've got time with my family, so don't expect a response from me during that time, but I'll get back to you the next day. That's fine. Just set those expectations. And I think the earlier you set expectations with folks, the more successful your situation will be. All right. So how to keep contributors involved after their mentorship program ends. This is really important. This is one of the things that comes up very often. So we've really tried to talk to our organization administrators and mentors in Google Summer Code and kind of pull these 6 things out as the top ways to keep folks involved. Encourage ownership of their project. Let them understand that, hey, you've done this really cool thing. You've built this project during the program. But if you leave, that project may not be picked up by anybody else, and it just may die. So you want to encourage them, you don't want to threaten them, but you want to encourage them that, hey, you can keep working on this project. But you can also basically show them ways to do other things. Like maybe they did this project, they did a great job with it, but during the course of the project, you realize that their interest was really piqued with some of these other things that your community was doing, or maybe one particular part of the project. You're like, hey, we have this other project that we'd really like to get someone working on. Why don't you look at this? This could be something that you could go on and continue on in the community. That's really important, because that shows the person, the mentee, one, that you want them there, that the community wants them to stay, but also that they can find different ways to stay interested and excited. And there's so many opportunities in your community for them to keep learning. Saying thank you. And this goes both ways. You should, hopefully the mentor or mentee is saying thank you to the mentor as well, but you just want to say thank you, your work is appreciated. That goes a really long way for people. Oftentimes, a lot of the organizations do some sort of a social blast, kind of celebrating the work. Some organizations will do a group kind of meeting at the end saying, hey, these are our 5 Summer of Code projects that finished this year, and then each person will give a 5-minute or 10-minute talk about what they accomplished. That really means a lot. Like, it can be a little scary for some folks, so you can kind of help, the mentor can kind of help them get prepared, and sometimes the mentor might want to kind of present with the mentee if they're very, very shy, and that's okay. But you want to celebrate their work. Sometimes it's doing a blog post. That's fine too. Or you can do different links to their projects that they worked on. Just some way to show your community what this person's done, and so that everybody can celebrate them and they can feel appreciated. You want to, some people do help the mentor or mentee write CFPs, so call for papers for conferences. And a lot of folks will go on and present at conferences about the projects they worked on in your community. That's a great way to also keep them involved. You can even have them present to your community, like I mentioned, and then ultimately just stay in contact. You don't have to email them every week. But if they disappear for a few weeks from your community, you might just send them a quick little chat or just a text or however it is that you're communicating with one another, just to check in, like, hey, we haven't heard from you, just making sure you're okay. You don't want to like bother them every week, but if there's been an extended period of time and you're used to chatting with them about once a week and it's been 3 or 4 weeks, just check in, make sure they're okay. So just kind of keeping that contact can actually go pretty far. We have a whole section in our Google Summer Code Mentor Guide on creating a lifetime contributor. Our mentor guide was actually written by former mentors, org admins, program admins like myself, and the GSOC students. So it's a pretty awesome guide. Even if you aren't involved in GSOC, that's fine. 97% of the information in there is relevant to any open source community. There's probably about 3% that's specific on, hey, this is how we do evaluations in GSOC. So you can ignore that. But 97% of the information is helpful to any open source community. And if you're doing any kind of mentorship program, I would suggest checking it out. And it's also not a, when I say guide, it's not like it's an 80-page book. Each chapter is about 1 to 2 pages. There's tons of great information. Now, these are actually the important links for the program. So number 1 at the very top is our Google Summer Code site. That all these other links you can actually get to from that page. At the bottom, we have a whole section, a help link. But these are helpful. And we have a contributor guide. So that's really helpful for folks coming into open source in general. Again, like the mentor guide, probably 95, 96% of it is relevant, even if you aren't involved in Summer Code or outreach or programs like that. But just getting started into open source. Like there's sections like, am I good enough? And, the whole lifetime contributor section. There's lots of sections that are helpful for mentors or mentees. All right, got a few minutes for questions.
Yes, anyone has any questions?
All right.
Yeah, exactly. Very nice job. One topic you only really touched slightly is mentor burnout. So I'm a bit torn between your initial suggestion to make the entrance hurdle very easy so that people can enter, because that leads to a lot of mentees trying, and that leads again to a huge amount of work for the mentors. So for me, it is something that is really hard to balance, because we want a community. We don't want to lose the mentors, and that is very dangerous, because if you only have mentees, you don't want to carry down. So I'm really torn in how easy we should do this entrance hurdle, and I wanted to hear your opinion on that.
It's a great point. I think mentor burnout is certainly a thing. That is, I get that, especially for any of the mentors that took part in Google Code-In. You definitely understand that. It's a lot of work. One of the things I think is helpful is if you have folks who are new to your community, kind of make them into mentors as well. Like not brand new, but like maybe they've joined your community 6 months ago. So they kind of went through that onboarding process. So try to make that part of your kind of cycle so that, hey, y'all can go in and help these other people, because they're the ones that just had all those questions 6 months ago. So that's still all really, it should be, hopefully, fresh in their mind. So I think being able to kind of help use those people will help for the mentors who are doing this for 15, 20 years, who might be the ones that are answering the more complicated questions. Because there's a lot of the baseline questions that I think probably anybody in their community that's been there for 6 weeks, 2 months probably could answer. And it doesn't have to be someone who's been doing this for 30 years or 20 years. So that would be kind of my guess, or my suggestion. Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, who mentors the mentors? Great question. Well, for Summer Code, in theory, that's kind of the org admins. Like they're kind of watching, making sure the mentors are staying in line, I guess. I'm not sure they're really mentoring them, other than if they're doing something a little off, or maybe they're missing deadlines, or maybe they're not communicating enough. because the contributors will reach out to the org admins and say, hey, I haven't heard from my mentor in 3 weeks. That's a problem. It's really hard when you do big programs like Summer of Code. You have over 2,000 mentors each year. So some mentors are, let me put this, most mentors are amazing. Some are okay, and then there's a few that are like, they got into it maybe for the wrong reasons. They wanted a mentor certificate, whatever it is. That is a thing apparently. So you actually really want to make sure that you're picking the right mentors to begin with, and they're doing it for the right reasons. Because I think sometimes people are like, oh, well, they told me I had to be a mentor. We actually had that happen before. Like, well, I was told I had to be a mentor. I'm like, no. No one should ever tell you you have to be a mentor. That's going to be a bad situation for everybody, because you're not going to, as a mentor, you're not going to really want to mentee that person because you've been told you have to do it. So it needs to be a choice because it's so much work. It is a lot of work to be a good mentor.
Thank you for the inspiring talk. I'm wondering if I could steal 50% of the slides because I'm. But my question is, I did also a couple of some of course mentoring or outreach mentoring, and I think the mentees were quite successful when they did the work. But afterwards, well, they continue with the study, they move on, they get a new job, and the result is that we more or less lost most of the students. How can we make sure that they stay?
Nope. Did I go too far? Yes. So these tips I think are super helpful. I think really the number one thing is, well, encourage an ownership and really giving them ways that they can, oh, sorry, my bad, sorry. I talk loud. Sorry. Encourage, did I just do that? Oh, okay. Encourage ways for them to continue in your community. I think that's really the number one thing. And it doesn't have to be on that project. Like maybe you realize the person's more of a UX type person, or maybe they would be great at doing outreach in your community. They don't have to be a developer. I think you want to show them their different options. And I think that's the way to kind of create that hook. And you've got to do it early in the process. It can't be done in the last 2 weeks of whatever program. That would be my advice. I think that's it. Sorry.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you can find me at the Google booth if you have questions. I'll be there all week. Thanks. Thank you, everybody.
Well, our next talk will start at 3 p.m.
Oh, you're next.
Really nice, really nice.
Great. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Yep, I forgot about that.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
I'm here to hopefully fix this problem, to attract more young people, more diverse people, and yeah, I would like to address this problem by showing the geographic distribution of Debian. But first, let me tell you something about the Debian community itself. So I think there's also an old white man, but he's, from my opinion, standing for the resilience inside Debian. What do I mean with a resilient community? Well, when I think back nearly 30 years, in 1996, I was starting this Debian. I have had not much experience in Debian, and I had some very, very low performance hardware with a very small hard disk. And I had to mount my user partition to a different host via NFS. And the install media did not support this at this time. And I asked for help on a mailing list. And there was Susan Kleinman building for me a kernel which I could put on my install medium. And she did it in 3 iterations because it first not worked and second did not work. And so I thought, well, if there's somebody who's sitting down for me, building kernel images for me and send it for me to email, this is a support I really appreciate. This is the Linux distribution I really want to use. And so I stick to Debian and had no good reason to use something else. 2 years later, when I was a happy Debian user, I realized I need this not very important package. It's a monolingual dictionary for English language, but I needed it for my study. And at the time, the maintainer for this package stopped maintaining it, did something else, and at that time the policy was this package is dropped from Debian, and I didn't like this would be dropped, and so if I want to do something, I want to have something in Debian, it's not done by somebody else, then I have to do it myself. And so I started with this package, which was for a beginner not very easy. I started with some training, a little Xteddy, you might not know it. And so I had the first 2 packages, and I became a Debian maintainer even before it was usual to pass some Q&A. So I'm happy because the typical thing in Debian is to have to answer some questions when you want to become a developer, and the question where you need to know a bit, and I'm happy that I did not have to answer this. I just got a phone call these days. Oh, this is fine. And so the entrance was maybe more easy, but we were way less people. And what I can tell you is the process to become a Debian developer selects people who are very patient. So if you consider yourself a patient person, then you are a good candidate to become a Debian developer. And you need this patience. So I became a Debian user, I became a Debian developer, and then I learned that Debian is kind of a family. You see, Joel Isbay-Klecker became only 21 years old, and nobody was aware that he is very ill, and he was dedicating more or less his whole life, his short life, to Debian. He was working from his bed for very heavy stuff, like libc or so. It was very high qualified technical work. And 6 weeks before he died, he said, "Oh, guys, I can't continue." And this is when I learned this is not just a technical project. It's a project of friends, and I call it family. And you see me even now move when I'm talking about this. There were other people who passed away. It's always, but this was the time when I learned it's more than a technical project. It's something I could dedicate my spare time, my lifetime, and this is, since then, I'm even more into Debian. Yes, by chance, I would say, I'm working in a medical institute. I'm a physicist by profession, so I'm not original IT person. And yes, this medical institute needs a lot of microbiology software. And what to do? Yeah, there is a lot of microbiology software in the free software world. All this gene sequence stuff is in most cases free software because it is university driven, and university tends to do publications, and a good publication is usually the data and the code matched together. So the code is free software, and we had a couple of these free software project packaged in Debian, and I assembled all these in what I called Debian made project. We have the internal term blend, so we have a blend for astronomy, education, games. So all these blends are user-centric, on one side packages that are assembled and people who are caring for this assembly. And this is Debian made, and I'm actually quite proud because I somehow followed what Stephanie said before and attracted a lot of people to this project. What to say? We are not very good in Debian to attract people. That I need to, in my estimation. But this Debian made project, despite it's not very important for Debian in large, the Debian would be the same without this project. But we managed to attract one developer per year who said, oh, this Debian project is cool, Debian made project is cool, I become a maintainer because this exists. And some of these people later did other things as well, but they came because I think our team is quite a good outreach. And I think this is very important. It is a lot of mentoring involved. It is a lot of telling upstream people, hey, you could also maintain your stuff inside Debian, because the upstream maintainers frequently know way better than, for instance, as I said, I'm a physicist, and if there is a bioinformatician, and he knows how this package needs to work. And if I teach this person how to manage this package in Debian, then we have the perfect package. We need test suites, we need to make sure that it works as expected for the maintainers. So this is kind of my way to make sure that people can maintain their package inside Debian. And later on, I decided to run for Debian project leader. And then I said to my teammates in Debian made, oh, I now have different tasks. I can't do the work inside Debian made anymore because I need to do other things. And I'm really, really happy that these people managed this project even without me, while I was all the time the most active contributor. But the fact that I do not contributing anymore is not making any loss for the small sub-project inside Debian, right? Debian made is completely inside Debian, but it's a sub-project, and the 10 active people are working on this. And this is my biggest worry as a Debian project leader, that we have lots of tasks inside Debian where only a single person is working on. So we have no real redundancy inside the project. And I'm really worried about this. And I'm even more worried that many of these people are not worried about the fact that if they go, there would be a big loss. And this is, well, one thing why I was running for project leader. And I'm not really sure if I was successful in my first term. I decided to run a second term. Let's see. But, well, Debian, it's an old distribution, right? It's really, who's using Debian? Who of the people who raise their hand have installed the popcorn package and provide the data? So it's not a good statistic, but it's less than half of the people. So what is graphed here is, well, if the user says at installation time, yes, my computer is permitted to anonymously send data to the Debian server, what packages I'm using, then we get this data. So we probably have way, way, way more than 200,000 users, but we don't know about them. We have no chance to know about them. So you have, I'm not sure if it's 10 times, 100 times, I don't know. But what we see is that the use of Debian was constantly growing. This is what we can, there's here was popcorn not working at this time, but you see it's working. And well, my institute is also not using popcorn because they said no data will be sent out of this institute. So this is not default, but you can see Debian. Yeah, I think it's relevant because this is the most frequently used package. This is further is from libc, probably it's very similar. So I think this graph is not telling us a number, but it's telling a tendency that people are using it. And we don't get the numbers of all the derivatives of Debian. You know, Ubuntu, which is most probably way more used than Debian itself, but we don't have the numbers. And Ubuntu wouldn't probably not exist if Debian would not exist. And we have Mint and whatever. I think Debian is the most derived distribution. So, yeah, it's Debian relevant. It is tested. In Debian, we have CI tests. It is called auto package tests. And I'm very proud that this number of packages that are tested is increasing all the time. And this is also important. And I really work for getting more tests. For instance, the Google Summer of Code projects I did was all the time asking the students, these are the most frequently used packages according to Popcorn, which have no auto package tests, and you work down the list. Write a test, write the next test, write the next test. The good thing about this kind of mentoring is you have very tiny chunks of work. So if the student has a big task and will not manage, this is not success. But the student has 2 or 3 times success every week. This is a good thing for Google Summer of Code project. Yes, and is Debian relevant? Yes, Debian is flying. There's at least one computer on the International Station, the ISS, and Debian will also fly to the moon. The NASA is taking it for, they are not landed, but the 3 robots are prepared. And well, if I get re-elected as DPL, I might announce it once the computers landed and Debian is going to the moon. What should I say? I think it's great. So why I'm here. In my last platform, I said, within the Debian community, there exists an uneven distribution in terms of gender representation and geographic diversity. Currently, there is a notable overrepresentation of male contributors originating from countries typically considered industrialized. People like me, not necessarily gray hairs, and I want to change this. but I did not succeed in this nearly 1 year. And that's why I decided to come to FOSSASIA and advertise coming to Debian. And it's not only tasks like building packages. Stephanie had given great examples what you can do. We need technical writers. For instance, if I think about the ArchWiki, which is a really great documentation. And Debian is just so old. And we have also a wiki, but it's on a technique which I do not even want to talk about it. We need people to migrate the content, to write better content. We need all different things. So we need you, young people who might be interested, here from Asia, from all over the world. I'll show you a map later, which is, in Asia is quite okay, in Africa it's even worse. So, this is a map of Debian developers who confirmed that they are living at their places. Some people do not want to provide this information. And you see it's mostly in Europe and Northern America. And even more interesting is the, we call it the incidence. So this is developers per 100,000 inhabitants of the country. And I know you are from China. So China has not a high density of Debian developers because China has so many people, inhabitants, and so there is a lot of potential in China, India, to attract more developers. And you see, we have at least 1 or 2 developers in Thailand, but Asia is not that densely settled. And as I said, I want to change this. And you can talk to me, you can, I'm here, I'm a normal person. So don't approach me as project leader, just approach me as Andreas. And we can talk about everything, right? You see, Africa is even worse. We have South Africa. And I do not even know about a conference in Africa. So it's really great you are running this conference. It's kind of an opportunity, and I would like to make something out of this opportunity. A really good thing in Debian is in-person meetings. One example is a DebConf. This is a yearly conference, which, well, the blue dots are the places where the conference happened, and the red lines are just where I attended myself. So you see, I was 3 times in Asia. I missed other conferences for different reasons. But this is a very good chance to meet Debian people. It's so amazing. I was, well, maybe the first 2 DebConfs. I was on DebConf 0 and DebConf 1 in Bordeaux. This was maybe kind of the strongest reason why I so deep into Debian, because if you meet the people, if you meet them again and you think, oh, this is a real friend, I missed this person 1 year and we meet again. This is really nice, and I want to share this feeling with you. Maybe some people were in Kochi in India in 2023 or in Busan last year. So I like to invite everybody to join DebConf. So how can we try to address geographic disparities? It's probably by translating things. I'm not really informed about Thai translation, but I think it's reasonably good. I can tell you I have an adopted Vietnamese daughter, also due to Debian, but long story. And I installed a laptop for her in Vietnamese. I don't speak Vietnamese. I just press enter, 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 doesn't work. Use the other option, enter, enter, enter. And this laptop was installed in Vietnamese. Right? So it's not that hard, but yeah. Next thing what I'm doing is packaging workshops. I'm usually doing packaging workshops in the way I said, I would ask you, maybe you want to join tomorrow, room 2, same room, tomorrow, latest session. And then you you name me one software which is not yet in Debian. And then we start. Because the idea is, if you work on the software you really want yourself, then your motivation to do this is way higher than just a hello world or so. So if you know something that is missing in Debian, it's not hyper complex, just join my workshop and I'll tell you or show you how I would do it. I also show you how I could fail, which happened in other workshops as well, but you learn from the failures and you learn that other people are doing failure, even if they have a lot of training. So this is not a problem. I will show you how to work around the failures and how to fix it. I'm currently running also the bug of the day. This was one idea to say, oh, some people don't have so much time. I'm seeking tiny tasks and I show how easy it is to fix the bug. It is, well, you could compare to going with a flashlight into the basement of a house and you see a lot of packages, a lot of, oh, this is a marvel, but this is not so good, and I can fix something here and I do something there. It's randomly choosing a package, which usually one has a very easy thing to do, and we do the easy things. I also want to strengthen local events. Local events are team meetings, local meetings, so to strengthen the local community. And what I also try to approach as a Debian project leader is to possibly streamline the packaging. We have a lot of different styles, a lot of different stuff, and I want to make it more easy. So, well, just join the Debian community. If you have any questions, just ask me later, ask me tomorrow in the workshop. So, question?
Not a question, just a comment.
Yeah.
Not a question, just a comment. That for DevConf are usually 2 weeks long, 4 weeks.
Well, the DevConf is 1 week, and it is pre-planned DevCamp for development.
Yeah, so it's difficult for many people to join because of that huge event.
Yes.
There are also mini DevConfs.
Yes, there are mini DevConf, that is correct. For me, traveling that long way, while I'm here for 4 days, is a little bit, yeah, sure.
Regarding the relevance of Debian, something that I think is actually really critical is Debian functions as place for so many other projects like Ubuntu, which is place on Debian. Everywhere you encounter, like I'm mostly on Debian, Linux Mint is also place on Debian. That needs to be acknowledged, I think, well, as well as how much contribution comes from upstream distributions like that.
Well, we have a lot of Ubuntu developers who are at the same time Debian developers, and I think we could do a little bit better by merging things back. If I get a patch from Ubuntu, I try to do it in 24 hours. Other people do it differently. I think those distributions have an imminent interest in supporting Debian, and they are also doing it in my observation. Right.
don't you think that more could be done to cooperate with other distribution beyond that you're referring to? Because you just mentioned patches, and I think in a lot of cases, downstream distribution will apply the same patches, and each distribution does the same work, just multiplying. I think it's a waste of resources.
Well, I also wrote in my platform, I want to do some cross-distribution discussion. And I registered a talk at FOSSDEM, and I also tried to register a talk at FOSSASIA. Both talks were rejected. What should I say? You're perfectly right, I agree.
Not a question, but a comment. Thank you. You think of all the servers in the world that are running Debian and servers, and it's not really a stretch to say that probably everyone in the world benefits from it. So thank you. And
yeah, you're welcome. Well, I actually usually answer this. I don't maintain Debian packages to make the world a better place. I maintain it because I have some profit myself. But I have a good operating system because all the people are working on this, right? So I'm happy that you are happy, but I'm happy as well.
One question here. So you said that you are encouraging upstream maintainers to have their packaging in Debian so that they can have the best. They're the best people who have the package.
Yeah.
Now, Debian has a high barrier for new packaging. Are you doing anything to solve that?
I tried to work 1 year on it, and I hope to continue another year. I can't do promises.
Any more questions? Okay, so thanks very much, Mr. Andrews, for sharing all
welcome. And thank you. Yeah.
So our next speaker, next speaker. Oh, okay. So we're still waiting for next speaker. Next talk will start at 3:30.
Recording myself. Oh, sorry. I think it's for you speaking. So can you look this one? Oh.
Oh. Do you want to try that one? I can just send you the slides, right?
It doesn't have your slide.
No, not here.
Not here.
No.
Uh, uh, can I send
Okay,
it to him?
welcome to the open source 101 track. Yeah, so the next speaker will be Mr. Aura. He's actually the
Can you check the
manager
screen?
for the
Yeah.
Force United.
Oh,
open
it's
source
not detecting, right?
community in India, and his talk will be on strengthening India's force community.
This one?
Right. So
No, it's
actually
not.
a short talk, only 15 minutes.
Okay.
So now we are trying for the to get the projection up. Is the next speaker in the room already? Teach your LM.
Do you have email on this?
Are you using your own laptop or do you have anything? Right. Or have you submitted your site? Okay.
Can I send it here
Thanks.
anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah, just let me know.
Okay, so for now, I'm on the clock are 15 minutes. So,
Sorry for it.
No worries. It's okay. I should have
so,
uploaded
now,
earlier.
If you're speaking, then please help to prepare get your sites ready and let us have it in advance. Otherwise, yeah, you're into your setup time. Okay, you speak without the slides.
No.
Sorry. Okay.
I think you need
15
a.
minutes started. Yeah, sorry.
Oh.
Do you have a pen drive or something? No, it's not okay.
Oh.
Maybe you can introduce yourself first while we help you guys set up.
Hi, hello, I'm Ansh. I work at FOSS United. We are a non-profit organization that promotes free and open source software in India. We give grants to open source projects and developers who are working on FOSS projects. We conduct events all over the country to, encourage developers to come talk about the work that they're doing. We are ecosystem enablers for the, FOSS projects within India, helping them with finding funding, discoverability, how helping them find contributors, users, and this is just standard Linux driver issues. Sorry, I mean,
If you have a PPT, you can just copy to the laptop and PDF.
yeah, I do have a PDF.
You have a PDF file?
I do, yeah. Do you have a pen drive or something? Yeah.
Did it work?
Yeah.
Or do you have like a type? Okay.
Done. Should I do this here?
This one?
Yeah.
Is the speaker at 4:15 in the room already?
Okay, I will remind.
Should I stop sharing here? Should I stop sharing?
That's it.
That was until 3:45.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Okay, this one. And then also you can have this if I could.
Yeah. Should I stop sharing this?
Okay. This one laptop you need to click.
This one. Right. I am a computer science engineer by education. I was a volunteer with the community for over 2 years, and I'm now working here full time as a program manager. I look into our city communities, the grants program, fundraising for the nonprofit. I assume everyone in the room is familiar with what FOSS is. I'll skip it in the interest of time. but I do want to differentiate between FOSS and FOSS United. FOSS is basically an abstraction. We are a small. It's a small part of the broader knowledge commons movement. Basically, that knowledge should be shared with the public. FOSS United is a community of FOSS creators and anyone who is aligned with the goals of FOSS. You could be a consumer, a contributor, a maintainer. So why do we need an Indian FOSS community? I'll just quickly trace the origins of FOSS United. FOSS United was founded 5 years ago by two organizations called Zerodha and Frappe. Zerodha is one of India's largest stockbrokers. Frappe is the publisher of ERP Next, which is a FOSS ERP software. Uh, ERP Next was founded in 2008 by Rishabh Mehta to, just to solve their own problems. They used to run a family business and they needed an ERP system to, for their own needs, and they created ERP Next as an open source project. In 2016, they founded something called the ERP Next Foundation to build a community around ERP Next and to, create a sustainable ecosystem. This was the same time they met the folks at Zerodha who ended up using ERP Next to build their own systems on top of ERP Next. They are also very heavy on their usage of FOSS. They save over tens of millions of dollars annually just because their entire stack is, dependent on FOSS, and they publicly acknowledge what free open source software they're using. And their goal was to give back to the FOSS community and the projects that they are depending on. So there was a lot of alignment here, and they decided to convert the ERP Next Foundation to FOSS United Foundation so that the goals could be broadened. We started with a FOSS conference in Bangalore in 2020. Around 150 people showed up. It was called India OS. It is now called India FOSS. And from 150 people 5 years ago, this year we are expecting 2,500 people at the conference. India is set to be the largest developer community in the world by 2028, overtaking the United States. We are a hub of startups, developer communities, and innovation. But in this race for innovation and creating billion-dollar companies, we've somehow lost that spirit of hacking, that FOSS used to be associated with. A very low number of FOSS projects come out of India if you compare it to the global landscape. We have a huge developer base that loves consuming FOSS, but there is no culture to contribute back to these projects. That was the idea behind creating FOSS United. Also, our education system is very rigid. We like to stick to the syllabus. So there is no spirit of hacking even in engineering colleges. So why FOSS United started? It was basically to scratch our own itch. The founders of FOSS United felt that there was no community in India where they could, an inclusive FOSS community where they could talk about the work that they are doing, or the projects that they've been using and contributing to. There were a few small communities, but they existed in silos. They didn't talk to each other, which is why there was no broader FOSS adoption. The existing communities were also very dismantled because of the pandemic. And yeah, there was no single platform for a FOSS developer to talk about their work and get discoverability for the project. And FOSS is huge, right? A recent study by Harvard found out that the estimated value of FOSS is $8.8 trillion. Just to imagine the scale of this, just consider the fact that the ability that you do not have to write a piece of program every time you want to code something because it already exists. That has huge economic value, right? Because you can just reuse something for free. But there's a huge supply demand gap. So the supply is $4 billion and the demand of FOSS is 8.8 trillion. In 2009, IIM Bangalore did a study that found out India can save $1 billion a year if we just switch to FOSS. And there is proof of that. We are also working on a study with the National Law School in India to estimate the impact FOSS can have in India in 2025. But there are good outcomes that have come out of FOSS. Zerodha I talked about. They save a lot of money. The IT at School project in Kerala is the single largest deployment of FOSS in education all over the world. In government schools, they switched all the Microsoft Windows operating systems to Linux, and they saved tens of millions of dollars, and they continue to saving it. Yeah, some other examples, I'll just skip it. And FOSS is also part of the Swadeshi movement, which is what the Indian independence stood for. Swadeshi means basically, in your own country. The goal of FOSS is very similar to that. You build your own thing. You do not rely on a proprietary foreign client that is going to overcharge you. The former president of India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, met Bill Gates in 2006. They had a small disagreement over the state of software. Bill Gates, of course, Microsoft, And this is a speech that Dr. Kalam gave after a few years at a college. He said the most unfortunate thing is that India still seems to believe in proprietary solutions. Sorry. India still seems to believe in proprietary solutions. Just a small change in this code will have an impact on thousands of people in India. It is for these reasons that open source needs to be built in India for the benefit of our billion people. So this is what we've been up to. Over the last 5 years, we've had 15,000 plus participants at our events. We've given grants. This is 200K USD over the last 5 years to FOSS projects. We have featured 100 plus Indian FOSS projects at our events, talks, podcasts. We've partnered with 30 plus companies to give back to the ecosystem. These are some of our programs. We are active in 25 plus cities now. 10 plus are very active where they do monthly FOSS meetups. We are active in college campuses, 25 college clubs. Right now, we are hoping to take it up to 100 clubs by the end of this year. We conduct meetups, conferences. This is our annual hackathon. This year, we had 5,000 plus participants hacking in person and remotely. India FOSS is our flagship conference. It happens every year in Bangalore in September on Software Freedom Day. These are the recent grants we've done in the last 6 months. These are some of our past grantees. We are also ecosystem partners with something called the FLOSS Fund, which is an effort to distribute $1 million a year into the FOSS ecosystem. This is a global effort. Until now, since we are an Indian organization, we could not fund global projects, but this is a different program that's come up, and the idea is to fund global FOSS projects. If you have questions, we have a booth outside. You can just drop by there. We do have a few success stories from the Indian FOSS landscape. Bruno was a project that we came across in 2023. Does anyone know Bruno? Awesome. Bruno is a Postman alternative. So back in 2023, when Postman and Insomnia both did some crazy stuff, they added login walls, they added paywalls. Bruno, which was a project which had like 700 stars, it just exploded. Today, they are at around 30,000 GitHub stars and 100K monthly downloads. There was a group at our hackathon a few years back where they worked on a project called Raven, which was a chat app based on the ERP Next ecosystem. They won the hackathon and then they ended up creating a company around that project. And this company is now one of our sponsors. Ente is a very popular project that has recently come up. It's an open source alternative to Google Photos, privacy friendly, open source, end-to-end encrypted. Sorry, Google is a sponsor. The Mecha Comet, Mecha is a open source hardware based company. They are working on something called the Mecha Comet. It's a Linux handheld computer. They publicly launched this at our conference last year. And they went out to, all sorts of popular FOSS events across the world. They were at All Things Open recently. And they are now on Kickstarter. So if you're looking for a fully, open source DIY hardware Linux computer, this is something you can check out. I do realize we've made this a lot about ourselves, but the idea for FOSS United is not to become that one label which is doing FOSS adjacent activities. One organization cannot solve for the world. One organization cannot just solve for India. Even for India, we want multiple such communities to come up. The idea for this talk is just to present our learnings from the ecosystem, and if you are building a FOSS community, what are some things that you should keep in mind? If you have an online community, focus on moderation. It's very hard. You need to have a good code of conduct in place. People should feel welcome and included, but you need to make sure that they also don't feel threatened participate, because online communities can be a very hot mess. Volunteers are very hard to find, but if you treat your volunteers are basically giving you their time. That's the best thing somebody can do for you, right? So if you find a volunteer, please treat them like they're your most valuable resource. It's not money, it's them. And if you do that, they will respond by becoming your most valuable resource. FOSS United is an 8-people team now, but we are spread out throughout the country. We have hundreds of volunteers. It's entirely volunteer-driven effort. We complain a lot about the FOSS ecosystem, that nobody cares about it. There's no money in the ecosystem. But if you look at the right places and if you try hard enough, you will find both intent and resources. So if you've been thinking on building a FOSS community, now is the time. What's next for FOSS United? Please check out India FOSS 2025. We are going bigger and better. We give free of cost booths to open source projects. Please visit us in Bangalore, give a talk. We'll be setting up 100+ FOSS clubs. We are doing something called Season of Commits, which is an Indian version of Google Summer of Code, basically. So it's a 2-month-long program where people will contribute to open source projects. We are doing elections at FOSS United. We have also expanded on our tech policy work. So we are encouraging developers to take up courses on tech policy. I'd like to thank our partners. These are our year-long donors who are helping us sustain these activities. And yeah, that's it. I hope I'm on time. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Because we are short of 15 minutes, but after this, please feel free to engage Mr. Ans directly face to face, or at the booth, or even online on Telegram. We will have the next speaker set up. Okay.
Sorry for the inconvenience.
Okay, so our next speaker is Mr.
That's what the recording
Tobias
says. Yep.
Mexner. The topic is teach your LLM how to code like you. Okay, let's start first.
The third one. Okay.
Okay, let's welcome Mr. Tobias.
Okay, good afternoon. Let's get started. Any software engineers in the room? Anyone? Okay. Anybody using AI to code? Okay, seems like all of you. Okay, then maybe this will be familiar to you, this meme. You used AI to generate 10,000 lines of code, great. But then you spent maybe 2 days to debug. Sounds that familiar to you? Anyone? Happened to you? Yeah? Okay, let's see what we can do about this. There's a new term coming up, quite popular right now, vibe coding. Maybe that's something you're not into, and I will understand. And so this is also related today, comparing vibe coding versus what you did in the past maybe. And I use a lot of memes, you will see. So this is another example. Maybe you use ChatGPT to copy your code over and then copy it back. This is one way to do it, but there's also better ways. And maybe you are at this level of this person to vibe code a whole video game with one prompt, right? Maybe some of you have been able to do that. But maybe you can get there, not a video game, but maybe something else, something relevant for you. So let's find out today, how can you teach your LLM to code like you? And I mean like you, like exactly, not like a robot, but like you. And I'll make it short. I think after this slide, the talk can be already over. It's very simple. You need documentation. So documentation is the solution. And you need some sort of pointers, some sort of routing to help your LLM to understand what you're trying to do. And one of the solutions you might want to use is HubQL Grid. So let's go to the next step, quick introduction. My name is Tobias, co-founder at HubQL. And we experiment with dev tooling about building with AI and also documentation. And I like memes, you will see, and computers, and I like to help tech teams and been using programming for a long time. Let's start with the theory about LLMs. In theory, what is LLMs and what is the problem with LLMs? One of them is lack of context, so they don't really understand what you're trying to do. They will have to understand what you actually want to do, and they might give you incorrect suggestions. And what is the reason? It's because they don't have the context, the fully understanding of what you're trying to do. The second one is missing documentation. Code without context is irrelevant. So it's very hard to debug. It's hard to modify. It's hard to scale. If you do bigger projects, it's very relevant that you have documentation, not only for humans, but also for LLMs. Now, how does the reality look like? Well, normally like this. So you generated something, and then what's next? What you're going to do with it? You might be a little lost, right? Like you get a bunch of code, what you're going to do. And I think this is a bit too small, but this is a code editor. I use Cursor in this case just as an example. And my prompt is build a to-do app. Okay, everybody did that in the past. And what you're going to get is something like this. I hope you can see this. What you normally get is something like a React app. You get a React app where you have some sort of state that will add a to-do, delete a to-do, maybe something like that. Very basic, but it's not really production ready, right? So what can you do to improve it? First of all, you can improve your prompt. And I think that's too small again, but in this case, I used the prompt to describe the tech stack I want to use. So I said, I want to build a React app with Supabase and Elysia and build me a full stack app connecting to a REST API to fetch the data. That as an example. As a result, you get already a better result because maybe you have a certain preference in terms of tech stack or technologies you want to use. So this is your next step. You can already improve the output with just a bit more context that you give to LLMs. But reality is where LLMs right now, probably somewhere in the middle, mostly in terms of coding. But I think all of you in the room are like on the right-hand side, right? Like you're probably smarter than an LLM in terms of coding and your experience. So take it as an advantage to be more successful. So what can you do? This is what I just described. Take a bit more time when you're prompting. So take more time to describe what you actually do in your head when you code, right? You think a lot about tech stack, your preferences, kind of approach that you want to take. So do that when you code with AI as well. Take more time into crafting a description of what you want to do. And the result is normally better. You will end up with something that is maybe more useful, something that helps you to save time. Maybe that helps you to actually generate something useful that you can then use as a template and go to the next step. And so it's really valuable that you spend this time on documentation or prompting. So this is just an example. You get maybe something better, something more split up into files. The naming is better, things like that. So back to the idea of documentation. How can documentation help you? Okay, we saw the theory and what is the status. But how can you actually use documentation to do that? Reality, again, about documentation is something like this. You enter maybe a new company. The reality is there's no documentation whatsoever. Or another reality is something like this. You get documentation that looks like that, where, yeah, maybe there is documentation, but it's maybe not actually correct or outdated. So that also leads to incorrect results, right? It's the wrong pointer. And so something that you have to fix. And how to teach LLMs, I try to break it down into maybe like 3 steps that you can take to maybe have a better approach in teaching LLMs. So one of them, you have to plan. Same when you do coding, you also plan together with the LLM. You need a project summary. You have to pick a tech stack, like a preference that you have. And you have to define boundaries, something do's or don'ts. You have to tell it to the LLM so they will understand. And also, if that's something you care about, coding guidelines, something that you want to inject into the output. It's also relevant for you. Put it in the plan. The next one is about context. Link documentation. You can't expect a LLM or someone that is new to your project to understand your project or documentation. You have to link it. So all of the coding tools offer you the chance to actually link documentation, and you can index it, and then it will be relevant and give you better outputs. Another way is to describe your repository structure if you have existing repositories, and point the LLM to code examples. This is the most powerful that you can do, because LLMs based on templates, based on examples. But if you already have examples in your project, just use them and it will kind of use them as an example. That's why autocomplete works very well with LLMs, for example. And the last one is you need a feedback loop. You can't expect to like use LLM and then not improve it afterwards. You have to track the changes that you do. So you can ask the LLM to actually keep track of the changes, keep a change log, and use that to continuously improve. Otherwise, it will always be bad. So have a feedback loop inside your prompting as well and keep track of the changes. So before it looks maybe like this, you don't have any documentation, right? So what you can do is something like that. I hope this is big enough to read. This is one example. I also have a repository for you to see. In Cursor, for example, you have cursor rules. You can use cursor rules to describe your project. And what you can do is go step by step through the topics that I just mentioned. So one of them is you describe your project overall. What is your project about? You describe your project in terms of tech stack, your expectations. So one of the examples is, how do you like to code? What is your coding style? Are you more minimal? Are you a functional programmer? Do you like classes? Things like that. You can describe it. You can also use roles. They're sometimes useful for LLMs to understand like the context as well to get started. So you can describe the role, like the person that you are. And as a next step, you can also do examples like this, what you want to focus on. What is your focus as an engineer? So you can describe this. It might help you with the output. Another one is also you can use tags. Some people use XML or JSON to provide more relevant instructions. So instead of just markdown or plain text, try to use some sort of structure in your prompts. They will help you to structure the output and overall help the LLM to produce better results. The same goes for coding style. Maybe you care about naming, right? This can also break linters a lot. So if you have CI, CD in your company, and they are relevant about file naming and variable names, if you have LLM with 10,000 lines of code and all of the naming is wrong, this is a nightmare. So try to inject this as well. Care about your coding style, inject it in the prompt. The same for tech stack. Maybe you have preference for libraries. Also describe this, like describe the libraries that you use, because LLMs have a preference for certain libraries. React, Next.js, Tailwind, things like that might be a preference for LLMs, but maybe use something else. So describe that as well. And this is one example also for cursor rules. Cursor rules now supports pointers. I call them pointers, but actually it's just you can include or direct LLMs to another file that is relevant. In this case, this would be example files. So those are your templates. If you ever write a CRUD app, normally CRUD apps are repeating themselves, right? You have a new model, which is almost doing the same thing, except the business logic. So what you can do is you can point it to your example, and this acts as your template to code. And you can point the LLM using cursor rules, continue rules, or any other rules that you have for your editor to do that, exactly that. And yeah, what is the output? You normally get something better. This is just an example. I did just one file to describe a bit more on what it should do, and the result was much better, definitely better than before. It's split up into libraries, it builds separate modules that use the coding structure I expected from my examples, and this is what you can also expect if you spend some time on documentation. And now, introducing also HubQL Grid. HubQL Grid is our project at HubQL, which is going to be open source. And the plan is to act as a code editor for documentation. What we're going to do is auto-merge documentation from different sources and produce documentation that is relevant for the code editor that you use. The way it's going to work is like this. We're going to have a document editor that you can use to maintain your documentation. We will have a CLI that's watching to your markdown files or whatever is your input in terms of documentation, and then produce different rules for your editors that you use, because company is normally made up of different editors that you may use. Everyone has a preference. So we're going to produce the output for multiple sources to help you in your team to have relevant documentation depending on what the code editor that you use. This is available under hubql/hubql on GitHub. It's still under development, but if you're interested, please come talk to me. Happy to chat and talk about this. And yeah. Now, summary again. How can you code with LLMs to code like you? First of all, you can also use LLMs to generate documentation. You don't have to write it, you can also generate it. So you can ask, let's say, Cursor, write me a cursor rule for my current project, and we're actually going to do that, and then you can refine it. So you don't have to write pages of documentation. Again, you need code examples that help you with the kind of structure and templates that you have. An important one, I think, is test coverage. So maybe there's some sort of comeback as well for test-driven development. I think it's very useful if you have text coverage. It will help you to ensure that anything that you add will also still work, even if you generate a lot. And so hopefully we go from this, being Harold, 22 years old like this, and we're going to be like this, right? Vibe coding, everybody going to be vibe coding and happy, and we're not aged that much as a developer. So try to use this, it might help you. And if you use Cursor or interested in this topic, please come talk to me, happy to chat. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tobias. Actually, very good. The next class at 4:50. So we still have a bit of a buffer. So if anyone has any questions. Feel free to go to the next talk you are going for another session.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, that was great. Have you ever deployed a production-grade application using this strategy?
I would say it works very well with greenfield projects, right? It does work with production-ready apps, but if you only go by feature, okay? So if you use, let's say, Cursor, you are able to build certain features if you scope them. So you have to experiment with your code base to kind of get a feel on how far you can go with the feature. Like, let's say you're changing some of the styling in the app. I think that's quite easy to do. Let's say you add a new CRUD endpoint. Very likely you get maybe 90% of the code is quite good. But then it depends on the code base, how large it is, right? So you might run into issues where the routing doesn't really work, and then the context will be messed up because it will look at the wrong place and copy over examples or templates from the wrong part of the repository. So I think, yeah, the answer is it depends, right? Depends on the size of your project, but also on your prompting. Like how small do you go with the feature that you're building? And I think you have to experiment with that. Yeah.
Thank you, great session. I just wanted to confirm about the product. I mean, how does it literally work? As in, I can generate a prompt, it will create documentation that can be understood by Cursor, and then Cursor will write the code for me. Is it something like that, or is it? I mean, how much work I will have to do if I'm using it?
Yes, good question. I think in general, developers don't want to write documentation. So our goal is to get to a point where you're just going to do it for you. So there's two things to it. Number one is you want to generate documentation in the first place, and then you want to validate if that's actually relevant for you. And for that, you have to kind of review it. So our goal is to help you to generate it out of your existing documentation. There's Claude Code, for example, which does that. If you do init with Claude Code, it will generate something like that. Or there's another library called Git Ingest, also very good library that generates an overview of your project. And then the next step is you have to review it and sprinkle in your personal preferences. And that's where we come in and help you to kind of organize and make your life easier to organize your documentation. The second one is to generate relevant output for different editors. So you might have a team that use 4 different editors. So we want to produce documentation for each one of those editors that are relevant in your team. And that's how it would work. Yeah.
Yes. So my question is from the context. So when we ask one question and with our prompt, we got some feedback. But what I would like to know is when we try to keep the feedback loop, so that the LM can know the context in the history we already taught, or does it cannot make sense to the previous context or like that? And how much of the prompt should we keep doing in one history or one conversation?
Yeah, I think first of all, there's a limit, right? The limit depends on the model that you use, and the limit depends on the tool that you use. So let's say you use Cursor. Cursor, you can have a chat. You can open a new chat, but those are also limited to, let's say, if you have a larger code base, to actually maybe just 2 or 3 prompts, okay? And then you might end up with doing a new chat, starting almost from scratch. It will learn over time. It will understand like your preferences as well. They have their own system to understand this over time, but you're still bound to that limit. So that's why I said you have to experiment with your code base, how far you can go. Like, do you describe just a function or do you describe a whole feature? And that will impact the amount that you use in terms of token and output that you're going to get, right? So you have to experiment. There's no golden rule for that. Also, if you use, let's say, Llama, right? They have different sizes that you might try that might produce a different output. So you have to experiment with this. Yeah.
So are there ways to keep the code base compatible with vibe coding? Like, for example, keeping file sizes small?
I would say the way vibe coding works is they have a very strong preference for a stack. If you look at tools like Lovable, or yeah, let's take Lovable as an example. They have a very strong preference for, let's say, using Next.js and Supabase as a combination, just as an example. And if you have a very strong preference, you can produce a very relevant documentation that works 95% of the time compared to, let's say, 50% of the time. If you're more like broader, it's very hard to produce relevant output, right? If you say you can build anything based on any library, this is not going to work, right? So you have to make a decision in your team. What is your preference for tech stack? What versions do you use of a certain library? And point it to exactly that documentation. You will get much better output. So you have to make a decision. You have to agree as a team in terms of like, what is the framework that you want to use? And then you will be able to byte code to a certain extent. Yes.
Any more last question? We might have time for one more. Okay, not let's end so yeah.
Thank you.
And the last talk will be from 4:50. We wait to start at 4:50 because
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
recording?
Okay. Mm. Okay. Okay. Ah, thank you. Mm. Ah. Okay. Test. Okay. Is there any way to put my phone up over there on top of the? Yeah. Maybe. Hello. Okay. Ah, thank you. Okay. Let's see if it works. Oh no. Okay. I go back here. No, not this one. Oh, I have to enable. Can I stop sharing my screen for now? Okay. I have to enable focus mode. How to do that? Yeah. Yeah, it's good that it's yes. It's good that we have some buffer time because this demo has a lot of a lot of things to set up. We do this in window. Yep, this should work. Okay, so the slide layout may not look that beautiful because that's going to be a live demo on the right. Okay.
Looks cool.
Yeah, let's wait. Okay. Where you're from?
Singapore.
Singapore. Okay. Can you speak other language other than English? Can you try say something in Chinese, please?
大家好，欢迎大家来到曼谷。Everyone? Oh, cool.
Is it correct?
Yes, of course. Okay, welcome everyone to the last talk of day one. And we have Mr. Kai Pan Sakun Yawon. Sorry for the pronunciation. He'll be talking on an open source AI captioning system that works for open talks in local language. And he's a software engineer from Event Hop and creator Garden, right? So that's a theory from Mr. Kai.
Yeah. Okay, so it's already 4:15, so can I start? Okay, good. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm a bit sick today, so I'm wearing mask today. My name is Tai, and today I'm going to talk about an open source AI live captioning system that I built that works for technical talks in local language. So, is anyone here an event organizer? Oh, cool, yeah. Then I think you may get some benefit from this talk or be able to use this system. But first, maybe let me introduce myself. My name is Thai Pangsakunyanon, and right now I'm a software engineer at EVP Corporation, and the software we built is EventPop. It's like a end-to-end ticketing and event solution. So I think our specialty is like in like music festivals and stuff like that. So if you go to S2O festival or like EDC in Thailand, yeah, we are the provider for managing the event. And as a hobby, I doing tech stuff in Creators Garden, and it is like a community of people who like to create things, and we do like a lot of events. So we run a lot of free events. They are all free and no cost for people to join. And yeah, these are my socials, and I put my username at the top, at the bottom right of the presentation. So let's see. So for Creators Garden, maybe I can show you the Creators Garden website here. So when we run events, we like invite speakers to speak, and then let's say, and then we archive them into YouTube, and then we use AI models to generate a transcription and chapter, and also the description of the video. So we try to make the contents in the talks in our events as accessible as possible. So that's kind of what we do. And then I went to many conferences that have live captions, and I really like it because I'm not English is not native to me, so it really helps when I watch a talk and then there's a caption. I went to JSConf Japan and then WordCamp Asia and events like that. They have captions for their talk, and we in one of the events that I used to help organize, we use a professional live captioning service, but they are very expensive. And also the captioner, like they can type really fast, but no one can do that in Thai language. Also, nowadays, like last time with Camp 2024, I think they are using an AI system for live transcription, but still I look at the pricing, they are not cheap, and I didn't see any track record that it will work with Thai language. So that's the reason I built my own. So anyone, let's do more demos. Let's go for demos first. So anyone can speak languages other than English here. Maybe I'll start by saying in Thai. Let's say I'll say this ระบบจะส่งเสียงไปที่ back end ซึ่งเก็บข้อมูลใน SQLite. Yeah, you can see it spells the word back end and SQLite correctly. Any other language you want to try? Anyone come from other? Oh, Philippines? Oh, cool. Hello po, mabuhay. Have to wait a little bit. Maybe can you try something like that's a bit more challenging, like has some technical words or like, yeah.
Nandito po ako ngayon sa Thailand, dumadalo ng FOSSASIA 2025.
Wow. Is it correct?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yay. Okay, so that was the demo. So maybe, oh, you want to try more? Yeah, yeah, still have some time. Burmese. Okay, that's interesting. I haven't tasted with this language, so maybe go ahead.
Open source software conference của chơi gọi là bạn tạo đấy.
Oh, right now it thought it's something in Thai. Yeah. So at first, when we try to figure this problem, at first we thought it's going to be simple. We just take the audio from microphone and then pass it to some speech-to-text service and then show it in the front end, right? Well, it turns out it's not that easy because when speech-to-text, usually they use different model for different language. So for example, the last example I said ระบบจะส่งเสียงไปยัง back end ซึ่งเก็บข้อมูลด้วย SQLite. Yeah, if I use the built-in speech to text in the phone or in my PC or in my Mac, yeah, it got the Thai text correct, but the English text is all wrong. Yeah, so yeah, so speech to text is really good in English, but when it comes to local language like Thai, very challenging, especially when there are technical words thrown in. And from my observation, from my testing, most services, when they process Thai speech, they cannot deal with spoken English words. Here's another example from yeah, this. So right now, Facebook, when you go live on Facebook, Facebook is going to generate an automatic caption, and now it supports Thai language. But if you look at the caption, again, it will write, this one is good because it knows it's an English text, but it got the word wrong. Yeah, he said calculator and it says calculator. There are many other words that the model got wrong, and the last one is particularly bad. Yeah, so in 2024, I got my hands on all the models that I was able to find. I test over 20 models, and yeah, I have a 50 minutes talk on this at JavaScript Bangkok. It's on my YouTube channel if you want to look at it in more details. But I take a look at a lot of models and then find the word error rate, WER. This is a metric of how many words they got wrong. So most models have at least 10% word error rate. And practically, it means that every 10 words, I have to fix one word. And that's like not acceptable. So I was able to find only a few models that get the word error rate less than 5%. But it turns out that it was not a speech recognition model. It turned out to be an LLM, multimodal LLM. So the solution that I built is a hybrid between the multimodal and LLM and ASR. But what are the difference? Let's look at LLM and ASR first. So large language model, I think they have this thing that's called a broad world knowledge. It knows a lot about the world. And a model that has a broad world knowledge can do something like this. It can correctly transcribe place names or technical terms. Let's say in the context of machine learning, it will know that the word onyx is going to be transcribed as ONNX. Or some speakers, they are very much into VTuber, and if I'm the one doing the caption, I don't know anything about VTuber, I'm going to like struggle a lot trying to caption these words. right? Yeah, and sometimes people speak different language, or some anime names, something like that. Yeah, so it's really challenging if the model is not large enough. It's not going to be able to handle this. So yeah, so this is an oversimplification. So a conventional LM, it has broad world knowledge, but ASR, so an ASR can listen. And some people, they take the output from the ASR and pass it through LLM for post-processing, but still it didn't work well. So there is this thing called multimodal LLM, which are language model that can process, maybe can process text and image, or text and voice, text and audio, text and video. Yeah, most multimodal ones only support image, but a few supports audio. But as it is, so you can see that a multimodal LLM enjoys the benefit of both. It can handle speech and it has a broad knowledge, but still it's a different kind of model. So it doesn't have some of the features that you get in conventional ASR, such as partial transcription, which can give you a transcription as you speak, or word level timestamp, which gives you the timestamp of each word. So with the multimodal LLM, you cannot do that. You have to send the whole block of audio and then get a response. You cannot get the transcription in between. So this is the, so after trying, this is the models that I use. Gemini Pro for its very low word error rate, like 1.4%, and Speechmatics for low latency. So the system, it contains like 5 main components. Like we have the audio sender, which is actually an Android, it's a web application, but right now it's running on, right now it's over here. I put it on the speaker here, and basically it's a web application that, yeah, it's a web application that, oh, my screen is locked. Oh, don't worry about it. Maybe you can see later. You can look it up later. But anyways, so we have the audio sender that takes the audio from the microphone and then use voice activity detection library to separate it into blocks. Yeah, this block is called utterance, and then it's going to be streamed to the backend, which save it to the database. And then there is a batch transcriber and partial transcriber that connects to different APIs. Yeah, oh no, the demo is gone. Oops. My apologies. Okay, it should be back now. Yes. So yeah, and then there's a web viewer and editor. So I'll give you a quick demo of how it works. So when I create a room, it's going to generate a few URLs for the viewer, for the editor, and for the audio sender. And on the audio sender side, it's going to look like this. It's just a web application. And when I speak, this bar is going to fill up, and then it's going to send the audio signal. And yeah, that's the, and then yeah, that's the batch transcriber over here. So you can see when, as I speak here, you can see the gray text here. The gray text here is using a partial transcriber. So it's a different, entirely different model. And then once the utterance is finished, it's going to be sent to Gemini. And Gemini is going to do a batch transcription with a large language model. And the great thing about large language model is I can edit the transcription here, and then when Gemini is processing the future chunks of audio, it's going to take into account the edits that I made to the transcription. So by the end of the event, if someone is checking the transcription, you're going to get the accurate one. So that's all for my project. This is the URL. So thank you everyone for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kai. Any questions? Lovely.
Thank you.
For the batch transcription, how do you chunk? How do you decide at what point to truncate? And do you overlap the chunks?
Okay, so the answer is the chunk is not overlapping at all. But you can see there is a red line and a green line. If the audio level pass the red line, then it is split at that point.
And that's based on the web speech API's utterance chunking.
Yeah. So the voice activity detection model, it takes a block of audio and then it gives you the probability that it is speech. So so I added some smoothing algorithm in there so that if the chunk is too short, it's going to wait a little bit longer before splitting.
And when sending to Gemini, do you convert it to an MP3 or send it as a raw wave? What format do you prefer?
The format that I sent is a WAV file. I think it's actually a raw PCM. I sent it as 16 kilohertz single channel. I think Little Indian side. Yeah.
Okay, so actually the thing is up, but because it's the last session, if you don't have any session to go to and you're interested to ask more questions, or in case you feel tired, please feel free. Do you have any more questions? Mr. Dutch?
Thank you very much. It's really amazing work. I have a challenge of looking at my colleagues speaking in Thai in the video call, and I needed to get translated and capture it in English so that on their side as well, if I'm speaking in English, it's be able to translate it back to Thai language. So this kind of tech is really useful. I looked around. I am not sure if I explore on the other models like Whisper or other model like Seamless from N40 and 4 from Method. Have you explored those models and how will it be different if it's going to be those models?
Okay, I tried Whisper and Seamless M40 from Meta. I think for Thai language, Seamless M40, the result wasn't good. Whisper is good at about 7% of word error rate. So it's better than the majority of model which has 10% more, but only like Gemini and the latest one is called Scribe from 11 Labs. They are able to achieve like less than 5%, actually less than 2%.
The Google Cloud also has the text-to-speech model as well, which is totally different, I think, from Gemini.
Yeah, they are not good. Not good. Yeah, and I can show you the other slide that of that 50-minute presentation, but I can show it to you quickly. It's opening. Just a moment, please. Okay. Sorry, there's like a lot of slides. Okay. Okay, so here, these are the word error rate that I test from Facebook Live, YouTube, Azure. Yeah, and then there is Whisper, right? This is when I try Whisper, it's 7%. And then when I try like Gemini, not sure where is it. Yeah, Gemini is at about 2.5%, but the latest version of the model is like 1.7%. Yeah. Okay.
This is awesome. I tried to use Whisper also to do this. I wanted to do this to learn Thai. When I'm in Thai class, it's mixed English, Thai. But the problem is Whisper gets confused as soon as you switch language.
Yeah.
But there's another aspect that Whisper has, which is called speaker recognition. There's another term. I feel like that could be important. Is that possible with the way you're doing it? Because sometimes, for example, if you and I are talking, and I want to give your speech more weight because you're the speaker, and I'm just asking a question, it would be really useful to have, but I feel like it's missing. If you just use a LLM, you're not able to do that, right?
Yeah, I think according to the documentation, the Gemini model is able to do like audio diarization or something. Yeah, that basically tells different speakers apart. They say that in the docs, but I haven't tested yet. Yeah.
In the conventional ML, I think there are models who can differentiate the audio stream.
Yeah.
Separate speaker. So
Yes.
it could be a stream processing program, but it's not a Gemini.
Yeah. So Scribe by 11 Labs can also do that. It's just released like 2 weeks ago, I guess. Yeah. It can separate between different speakers, and the accuracy is very high, but still from my testing, it's still not as high as Gemini's.
Are you looking at using this at a desktop or offering it to local conferences like this conference or ICON or something?
Sorry, let me check. Okay, so right now I'm using it for local meetups, but still it's like open source and it's not like offered as a service. So to use it, you have to like run and set up some servers. I was in touch with some broadcasters who are interested in using my software, and I sent they have some developers and they were able to run it, and they say the results were pretty good. So yeah, I wouldn't be able to offer this as a service because I have a full-time job and other things to do. But the source code, I'm happy for you to like use it, or maybe even fork it or add translation capabilities. Right now it's just transcribe, but many people have requested translations too.
Can you run it without the mobile phones, like the only or?
Yes. The audio sender is just a web app. So technically I can run it here, but I would need to get a high quality sound into this machine. So right now, the best way to get the audio easily is putting a phone over there on top of the speaker. So it has all the sounds. But usually when live streaming, I would bring an audio interface and then get the sound from the mixer into the audio interface into my computer. So everything will run in my laptop.
Okay, thank Mr. Tai very much for sharing his amazing project.
Okay, thank you very much.
And also thank you for an amazing audience for the discussion and interaction. So that marks the end of day one, open source 101 track. Please come back again tomorrow, and in the meantime, enjoy all the delicious Thai food. So we'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, and take care.
Thank you.
And of course, thank you to my to the volunteers. Right? They work very hard. Yeah. Okay, take care.
Thank you.